Welcome to Discourse. That's Retha.
And that's Tony.
And today we're talking about Isle of Dragons by L.A. Thompson. So Isle of Dragons is like a fantasy, steampunk, young adult novel. To catch everybody up, let me read the book summary. Watch steampunk technology and high fantasy witchcraft clash in this heroine's fast-paced, epic journey to rescue her father from dragons and reveal the secrets of the noble court. On the run from the royal army in a giant mechanical centipede, 16-year-old Jade Sol embarks on a dangerous adventure to help her father escape from the Isle of Dragons, a land of untamed magic that some believe only exists in myth. So it looks like Amazon says this book is for ages 11 to 17, so that'd be the young adult range, right?
Yeah.
386 pages, although it doesn't feel like that. It feels a lot shorter. It's not, 386 pages makes it feel like a really long, like in-depth
dense
novel.
Yeah.
It's really not dense. It's kind of a light read.
For sure.
I really liked the idea of combining fantasy, steampunk, and dragons all in the same book.
Yeah, for sure. I've never really read steampunk type of books before, so I was really excited and interested to read that. And the combination, like you said, I feel like it would be very interesting, so I was...
Yeah, wondering why there's not more books like this. It's a really fascinating combination, and I like the idea that in this world that L.A. Thompson creates, magic is really considered like witchcraft.
Right.
And they're being like hunted, right? Like, how dare you use magic? But then it's okay to use your mechanical skills to build these, they call them like pods and centipedes, like in the summary. There's even a bull that they call it.
Yeah, like even a mechanical bull.
Yeah, like a mechanical bull. And then when they described a mechanical bull, I was like, oh man, she's going to ride a mechanical bull just around the town. That's amazing. But I really liked the combination of both the magic and the steampunk in this type of like what you would assume is like a standard fantasy world. Right. But then again, we have magic and we have steampunk, and then you add in dragons to the mix, right? So you get this really interesting combination of the three. So in the story, we follow this young girl named Jade of House Sol, and she's on the run because her family is persecuted or pushed out of the royal court. Her father gets exiled to this magical land called the Isle of Dragons.
Well, no. So her father is banished because of treason. So he was supposed to have sent resources and men to go help fight in the war, but he didn't because the town was...
We come to find out that it's like a manufactured reason for treason.
Right. Like a dragon came, destroyed his city or his town, and he had to rebuild it. He couldn't just send his resources and his men off. He had to take care of his people. But by doing so, the king was like, oh, that's treason. You should have sent all your resources, all your people, because that's what we need. Yeah. Not your people.
And even Jade in the beginning kind of realizes that this is kind of like a manufactured reason for treason. She loses everything. She's a noble. She loses everything. She's on the run. And she takes this mechanical centipede on the run. And then she runs into this family's farm where one of the girls, Miria, knows magic. They call her a witch because she practices witchcraft. I like the farm, though, because she meets Miria, but she really meets Miria's whole family, right? And then we get introduced to this whole mix of interesting characters, like a grandmother, a mother... No. So it's a grandmother, and then some younger kids, and then Miria's brother.
So there's two older kids. So Miria's the oldest, then Dan, the second oldest, and Eliza and Avi. Those are the two younger kids.
So they spend time at this farm helping Jade hide, and then Miria's like, bro, where are you going? And Jade's like, I'm heading to the Isle of Dragons, but it's kind of hard for me to get there. So Miria's like, I got you. Let's find a dragon and ride that bad boy to the Isle of Dragons.
Let's find your papa. Let's do it.
And then Jay's like, are you sure? It seems kind of dangerous to be riding dragons around. And Miriam's like, it's fine.
I can tame them.
So there's a big part. Yeah. Well, she has the stone that helps her.
Yeah, she has a stone that helps her tame
and that ends up being the crux of the novel, kind of, right? The Harry Potter Horcrux, maybe?
No.
So it becomes very important that she has this, and it helps her tame the dragons, and they end up riding. Well, maybe I shouldn't give too much away, but it's a really interesting piece of this novel. A good portion of the middle, I think, is taken up by Myria and Jade meeting, Jade being introduced to Myria's family, and
them creating a bond and strengthening their relationship, and for her to help her on her journey to find the Isle of Dragons.
Yeah, and then in this whole section of the novel, we get a good understanding of both of their backstories, right? Because the novel opens up on Jade's story, but we don't really get much of a backstory until she meets Myria, and they're kind of swapping stories, and that's how they learn about each other, and that's how the readers learn about them. And then we end up moving out of the farm, and I don't want to get too much into it because that's where the like high fantasy portion of this novel comes in.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the story begins, is once they leave the farm. We're set on their backstory. The characters get to know each other. And that's where I think this story really starts to pick up.
Yeah, more of the action starts, more of their obstacles that start to get into their way. So it's kind of interesting.
I liked the different types of mechanical instruments in this book, mostly because I like science fiction a lot more. So I was leaning more towards that. I think you liked more of like the fantasy magic portions, right?
I really enjoyed the centipede. I thought that was really cool. I feel that's definitely very steampunk. Steampunky. And I thought that would be such a cool thing just to have like nowadays. That'd be so cool to just be riding down the street in a centipede. It's like put on the invisibility cloak going on, and I don't know. I felt like that was really cool. I enjoyed them meeting other mechanics that work on pods and centipedes. Like that was just really cool to kind of get into that world.
Yeah, I like the larger world that's being built here, like you said, with mechanics, and there's really like an industry around repairing those types of vehicles and making them and salvaging them.
And like that's basically like science, right?
Yeah, science.
So because like magic, that's a type of science, isn't it?
Is magic
like alchemist?
Is magic a type of science?
Like alchemy?
Well, I think once science fiction, I think it's described as science fiction if there's like some kind of scientific explanation for it. So alchemy could be considered science fiction because there's some kind of a reason behind it. Whereas magic is just, I learned it and I know it.
It's in my blood.
Yeah, it's in my blood.
It's
I take it from like the... so I think there's a difference between like magic and science fiction.
But I really liked too that her family, when they met her family, that they were farm type of people. Like I feel like they would be in their house making potions and things like that and developing their magical skills, and like the rest of the town was like, don't mess with those people, they're weirdos. Like I did really like that. I liked her grandparents.
Yeah, they were very like wholesome type family. So we should talk a little bit about the dragons. We talked about the magic, we talked about the steampunk. We should talk a little bit about the dragons because the dragons play an integral part in the story. It is called the Isle of Dragons, and they do go there. And we get introduced to a couple of different types of dragons. There's different types of dragons for the different lands that they go to, which I thought was really interesting. But let me read you a description about one of the dragons that they encounter, just to give you an understanding of the type of really like magical fantasy descriptions going on. And just beyond the farm, the towering pale dragon writhed about, seemingly in pain. Eyes white and unfocused, the creature howled in a strangled, unnatural manner as it spat fire. Houses and barns were ablaze. People and animals galloped away in a panicked haze, while others gathered together to fight the fires as best they could. When the dragons show up, they often, not often, I guess. When the dragons show up, they could cause destruction, and that was one of the scenes where it caused some destruction. I think even injured Myria at one point, right? Mm-hmm. She gets, like, burned. So I guess we should talk about the relationship between Jade and Myria, because there's three main characters, Jade, Myria, and Dan. There's a lot of, I guess, what I would call, like, sub-characters, additional characters. They're interesting, but Jade, Myria, and Dan are the focus, I think, and really Jade and Myria, their relationship, but also their backstories, and both of their backstories are connected to the Isle of Dragons in some way, and that's kind of what we find out through the entire novel, is how are they connected to the Isle of Dragons. We have Jade, which we know, this is not a spoiler, we know Jade's father has been exiled to the island, and that's why she's going. We're learning also that Myria has a connection, a family connection to the island, and she wants to go there as well. And man, I don't want to give away any spoilers or anything, but I feel like Myria's connection to the island is a lot more, at least in this book, surprising than Jade's. And I think it's only because we understand Jade's connection to the island from the beginning, where Myria's is a lot more like shrouded in mystery.
Well, I did really enjoy about the dragons how Like there was the desert dragons, the ice dragons. I feel like I was really more excited about the dragon portion of the story because it kind of reminded me of like Harry Potter, how there was always different dragons from different areas of the world, stuff like that. So that was super interesting, really cool. And I liked how Myria was connected to the dragon, like able to tame them or basically like connect with them on a level with that stone that she had on a necklace that her parents gave to her.
She was like the dragon whisperer.
Right? Like I felt like she was like Khaleesi, dragon queen, like it was kind of cool. Like I kind of got those vibes sort of thing. And I liked how she used it and how her parents brought it back from the island and that's how she was connected to this magic. And I don't know, to me that was really interesting and cool.
So let me read a quote where the author, Ellie Thompson, is describing the dragons. Like one of the dragons is coming out of the dirt, I believe, in this scene.
No,
was it no, it was the dirt. I don't want to give too much away, but yes, one of the dragons is coming out of the sand. Two sharp black horns rose from the sand, and long yellow claws began digging their way to the surface. The creature that emerged had a long, slender body and back lined with crimson scale, while its underbelly glistened with a scaly gold. Its large round eyes were wild with rage, and it lowered its body, head bent forward and its short, sharp horns protruding upward. The beast lunged forward and charged at the ice dragon, locking horns with the beast. The ice dragon pushed it back. However, the desert dragon struck its back with massive claws. The ice dragon cried and stumbled back in pain.
It reminded me a lot of like when when the male deers like fight in the wild. And also with the descriptions of the dragons, because I was almost assuming they'd be like, the Hobbit type of dragons going on, like these big, gigantic beasts. But I kind of like that they were more of like the slender type of dragons portrayed that way. So I definitely loved the descriptions of the dragons.
Yeah, I liked the descriptions of the dragons too. Like I said, we go back and forth between really good descriptions of steampunk technology. We get these really fascinating battles where Myria uses magic to fight back against guys with some spears. And then we get these awesome descriptions of dragons, either describing them kind of like in the wild when they see them, or them battling it out like we just saw.
I loved also how all the weapons that they used were like electric. And I really could visualize that when I was reading it. I was like, oh my God, I could just imagine like the axe or something just lighting up and just hearing it crackle, and it's pretty cool.
So this is the beginning of a trilogy. This is the first book of that trilogy, and it's really and it feels like the beginning, right? Like we're just scratching the surface of these characters and this world, because I don't think I'm giving away too much by saying there's the world they live in and then there's a magical realm, right? And again, I don't want to give away too much, but there's something going on between the two. And that's what we're going to discover as readers while we read this series. And I think it's going to be a fascinating series to see where it goes. This is a really interesting beginning to that kind of a series.
Right, and like you said, it's just scratching the surface. So the author is basically just giving you a little bit of all of these things, the dragons, the steampunk and all that, and the magic. And with just the descriptions that she gave, I feel like the next few books are going to have even more of that, which is what I loved.
Yep. I want more steampunk. I want more dragons. I want more witchcrafty magic. I want more of Myria and Jade. Their relationship is interesting. I want to explore it further. Dan's pretty interesting himself. I want more of all of it, and I want to get into the meat of it in the next one. And what I mean by more of the relationship between Mary and Jade is they're the main characters, and I find them interesting, and they have kind of like a love-hate relationship, right? Like they're friends in the beginning, they get to respect one another throughout their adventure. They have a little bit of a falling out near the end. So I really want to explore where their relationship is going, because they're both interesting in that they come from two different worlds. Jade of House Sol is a noble. Yeah. She's rich. She gets all the Prada bags. She has everything she wants. Myria is from a farm. She's a farm girl. She knows magic. So I feel like though they have a connection to the Isle of Dragons with their parents, they're really kind of different people.
Yeah, because for Myria, her family, they're kind of they're respected, but they're feared because they know magic and their connections to magic. And witchcraft is what they say. And then Jade being noble, having everything sort of thing, being respected. But now that she's an ex-noble and...
I like how Jade throughout the story, reminds people that although I'm a noble, I'm an ex-noble, I'm on the run, right. I'm a criminal. And she has to remind Myria and the family of that, I think, constantly, because she wants to make sure that they know what they're getting into.